My next one is, because I'm the banks and real estate guy, my next one is a real estate company called Ryman Hospitality Properties. You might not know the Ryman name unless you live in Nashville. This is the company that owns the Ryman Auditorium and the Grand Ole Opry. They have some performance venues, but their biggest business is hotels. They own 5 gigantic hotels, all operated under the Gaylord brand name. If you live by the in the DC area, you might know Gaylord National Harbor. Their flagship one is in Nashville, the Gaylord Opryland. There's one in Central Florida called the Gaylord Palms. There's one in Denver, and there's another. I'm drawing a blank there. I think in Texas. Uh, but, so there's 5 of those. And the thing to know about the Gaylords, they are all convention hotels. They are 5 out of the 6 largest hotels in America by meeting space outside of the casino industry. Was not a great hotel business to be in 2020. No, there were no group events happening. I went to CES in January 2020, and I think that was the last convention that existed. Even now, conventions really aren't picking up in large numbers just yet. So we've seen travel demand pick up. We've all talked about that. I mean, out of the 5 stocks you've heard about so far, travel demand was talked about in at least 3 of them. But most of the travel we're seeing so far is leisure in nature, and there's a big difference. It's important that there's 2 travel worlds. There's leisure and business. So leisure we're seeing pick up. That has not helped Ryman that much. They've done a good job of pivoting their properties toward leisure travel somewhat. For example, the one in Central Florida is right near Disney World, so they were able to sell that to people going to Disney World to some degree. That was their highest occupied property in the first quarter, and it was under 25% occupied. So one of their properties, the Gaylord National in DC, was so hard hit at the beginning of the pandemic and would have done so little business, they decided it was better to just close, and it's still closed today. It's been closed for over a year. They decided to go ahead and do a large scale renovation of the rooms and just leave it closed through this July. So really hard hit business. A lot of hotels we've seen coming back. The Gaylord has not, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. They've seen very few cancellations for the second half of this year. Ryman has rebooked over 1 million canceled room nights that were canceled during the pandemic. That's about 2/3 of the total that were canceled are being rebooked and squeezed into future years. So the future looks really good. 2022 is tracking better than 2019 did at a year before. So in other words, 2022 could actually be stronger for Ryman's convention business than 2019 was pre-pandemic. This is a business that is just kind of it's like, picture the group travel industry like a spring. In 2020, you spent all the time stretching the spring back, and now it's really ready to explode. And I think that's what we're going to see. Not necessarily, I think by the end of the summer, we're going to really see this start to come back. 2022 is going to be a monster year for the group travel business.
Nice. Thanks, Matt. I think you kind of answered this to some degree, but I just kind of want to focus in on it. When you say convention travel, business travel, Vegas pops to my mind, right? Because I guess a lot like Ryman, the Vegas resorts, they get a lot of their revenue from business travel, despite the image we might have in our head of just people going to have fun. A lot of it is those conventions, right? So what do you think? Do you really think these big conventions are coming back soon in the same way we had them before? Or if not, what's Ryman's place in that world? What's their place in the world where maybe more people are working remotely or doing flex work? What does their future look like in this?
Sure. Well, 2 points. One, I think that most conventions in Vegas happen to give people an excuse to go to Vegas, not necessarily because they really want to meet there. No one wants to have a meeting in Vegas. They want to go to Vegas, have a meeting, then do other stuff. Usually when I'm in Vegas, it's for a meeting. But number 2, you mentioned remote work, and that's a really good point. What Ryman's CEO explained, it's actually really interesting. He said a remote workplace actually creates more of a need for occasionally gathering together in large groups and going to conventions and actually having some interaction. Because I could tell you, as someone who goes to conferences in Vegas 3 or 4 times a year in normal times, there is value to that. And someone who works from home normally, there is a lot of value to being in a room with a couple thousand other professionals and doing some networking and stuff like that every so often, even if you prefer to work at home. So the transition to remote work, I mean, it looks like remote work isn't going to happen after the pandemic in the numbers that people originally thought it would, but it's still going to be more than it was before. And that could actually create more of a need for these group events and things like that. So don't necessarily think it's going to hurt the group industry. It could actually have the exact opposite effect.